what's up, everybody? It's Aslan. It's Corey Clark. We do a podcast usually daily during football season, but it's off season, so we're down to 3 days a week. It's called Wake Up Warchant. Perhaps you've heard of it. Spring football, though, soon arriving. We'll return to 4 or 5 days a week, just cranking out content left and right. This is a little bit of a drop-in reaction video as it happens. Instant analysis, some call it, Corey Clark. By the way, we're presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill and our good friends at vitaminenergy.com. The specialty schedule, Corey, a.k.a. Thursday and Friday games, which is what we all think of when we hear the word specialty, right?
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That dropped today from the ACC, these midweek games. For those like me that harken back to a day where Florida State hosted a team in conference on a Thursday night in Doak Campbell Stadium, magical day against Clemson back in 2002, we're not going to get that. We're not going to get that. Not going to happen. But Florida State will have a specialty game. Corey, what do you think about that? They will take on Duke Friday night game in Durham, week 8, October 18th against Manny Diaz and the Blue Devils, Corey. Only specialty midweek game for the Noles. Maybe conspicuously absent from this list, Corey, Clemson. Thoughts on both of those things?
Well, first, I like the Friday night games more than the Thursday night games. I don't know why, but I do. Just feels more I didn't like them when they first got introduced, but now I do. The Thursday nights, just Florida State's always struggled with them. It's a shorter week. You're competing with the NFL. Who wants all that? So Thursday nights are devoted to the MAC, I guess. But that feels like, Aslan, right now, as we sit here talking, we know 3 of their conference opponents. Well, I guess we know 5. We know Clemson is coming at some point, and we know Florida State's going to Miami at another point. But the other 3 games are Georgia Tech in Ireland, Boston College on Monday night, and then Duke at Duke on a Friday night. Well, if one of your road games is at Duke, that seems pretty winnable, doesn't it? Especially first-year coach, new quarterback, because the other guy just left. Like, that seems like the ACC didn't do Florida State dirty by any stretch. Like, you were worried about like Thursday night in Raleigh or something. But no, it's a Friday night I was going to say Friday night at Cameron. A Friday night at Wallace Wade, which is right next to Cameron.
Yeah. Where did that go? There, was that the old one? Is this the new? I'm trying to look at the full composite they have, again, of your conference opponents, not necessarily any sort of order. So yeah, Boston College, Cal, Clemson, North Carolina, Duke, Georgia Tech, Miami, SMU. That Georgia Tech game in Ireland will count as a road game. Then, you're playing at Duke on a Friday night. So otherwise you got to go to Dallas, take on the Ponies, SMU, and then Miami. So that's what we do know. Yeah, man, I guess manageable is more or less what you're trying to kind of paint a picture of, or delightful surprise that the ACC didn't really do anything ill-reputed to hurt the Noles.
Now we'll see who that game is the Saturday before, if that's a bye week, or if they actually have to play an ACC opponent on whatever that would be, October 12th, and then have a short week to prepare for a road game, which is always harder. But yeah, man, I don't think anybody could be really upset with if you knew you were going to have one of these games. In fact, we talked earlier this week. We thought the whole schedule might be Thursday and Friday night games for Florida State, just for the ACC to really twist the screws in there. But I think Friday night at Duke would be an odd atmosphere, but probably pretty fun, probably pretty festive. And I think there'll be a lot of Florida State fans there. And it might mean something. That might be a very important game. And, that will be the 3rd time at least already that season, because Georgia Tech is week 0. Everybody will be watching that game in Ireland. Then the next game is a Monday night when you're the only game on against Boston College. People will be watching that one. And then this Friday night is you're the only game on. So that's another 3 weeks at least, which you should get pretty big ratings numbers, because people are going to be interested in Florida State, and big ratings numbers are appealing when you're maybe trying to get your foot in another conference that wants ratings and a big TV audience. Just a thought.
Also, Mike Norvell's on a bit of a winning streak here. We might have to call him like Hallmark Mike when it comes to holidays and odd day games, right? Like they won the Labor Day contest against LSU in 22, went on a Friday night, beat Louisville.
Yeah.
Black Friday at home against the Gators.
Yeah.
Then 23, taking out LSU again on Labor Day. So he's kind of comfortable in these situations. So we'll take it.
Yeah, even the game they lost in 21, that Monday night game, they had no business being in overtime with that Notre Dame team. That team couldn't even beat Jacksonville State, and they were there in overtime against Notre Dame I think that was a Monday night too. So, yeah, he's done a pretty good job with these things. They've usually put their best foot forward in games like this. And again, I just think Duke
without Riley Leonard, by the way, don't
yeah.
forget he's Notre Dame now, so they don't have their quarterback.
Well, it's a first-year coach against a guy in his fifth year with an established program. That should not be too challenging a game. I know I'm speaking this 9 months before it happens, but everything on paper right now, that should not be too challenging. And that's nice exposure for your program to go on the road, hopefully get a conference win, and get that much closer to getting in the ACC championship again.
No disrespect to the good folks in Durham, North Carolina. I mean, they got turned up, you could say, against Clemson in that opener this past year, but obviously nowhere near the expectations, nowhere near the roster, as you said, a first-year coach. So when you kind of really start piecing things together, I mean, outside of, I don't know, playing at Wake, I mean, there's probably no other more favorable place to be on a Thursday or Friday odd night and playing an away game than Wallace Wade, I would feel like, in this conference right now.
Or Cal? Isn't Cal horrible?
Yeah, here you go. Okay, I guess
maybe they weren't horrible. I feel like they were okay last year. I don't remember. I know they've been horrible. I know their basketball team's horrible. But maybe their football team is better than I remember. But yeah, I honestly thought this might be at SMU. That just had the feelings for me that they would. That seems like an SMU night to play anyway. No offense, Mustangs fans. A Friday night, and it's their first year in the conference. It's a big game. I figured they might want that on a Friday night for some exposure, but no, it's at Duke, where Florida State has never lost.
Yeah. Also, I guess I would think maybe Cal and Stanford would maybe actually pack it out, though, for Florida State the first time ever, right? Like the first time they are there, there's a bit of a novelty. Duke won't have that same kind of energy and excitement and electricity. So there you go.
I wonder how many times Cal Berkeley has filled their stadium since Aaron Rodgers left. What do you think that number is? Over, under 5? They've had sellouts since then.
I would take the under. I don't even know if the game against Stanford on those years would even pack it out.
Right.
Southern
it might with Stanford fans, but yeah, that's never going to be a tough place to play necessarily. But yeah, man, when you look at those teams, you know who you're playing away. You're playing Duke. Georgia Tech doesn't even count. So now you look at it, you've got 4 home games that we knew about, and then you've got the road game at Duke, which on a Friday night against Duke, that's not all that challenging. And then you've got Georgia Tech on a neutral site. I think SMU has a 25,000 seat stadium. That's not those road contests just in conference. Don't fill you with a lot of fear right now as we talk in late January.
Yeah. When you look at this slate, I guess we're not going to stretch this out too much longer, everybody. But when you look at some of these teams on your screen here, if you're watching the video and if you're listening to the podcast version of this, Clemson's in-conference slate, home games, Louisville, North Carolina State, Stanford, Virginia, and then away at Tallahassee, at Pitt, at Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, and then at Wake Forest. I like dodging Louisville, and I don't want to try to gas up Louisville too much, but like when we kind of look at this, I don't know if we still think about Clemson being the biggest threat in this conference. But again, if your snake pit game is a Friday night game at Duke, like I feel much better about that than having to play Louisville, your former coordinator coming back, and Tony Elliott in Virginia, and having to go at Lane Stadium, maybe like on a night game when Virginia Tech's kind of juiced up a little bit. Or should I scroll down? We got Louisville on the screen there too. They, probably have about as equal of a schedule as Florida State has. So just kind of pleased thinking about this,
Yeah, you look at Louisville. They brought in a lot of transfers. They were good last year, and then they had the number 1 and number 2 portal class in the country. They're going to be a contender to win the championship. Certainly to get there to Charlotte. I would say them and Clemson and Miami and Florida State. Those are the 4. When you look at the rosters right now in January, are the 4 probably predominant favorites to get to Charlotte. And then like Clemson, NC State's never easy. They're always well coached. That's always a good team. That's always an 8-win team. That's a bowl team. That's not an automatic win. At Virginia Tech, I don't think is an automatic win with the way Clemson's played offense lately. And neither is at Wake Forest because Clawson's a good coach. And they had a down year, and I don't expect them to be that down again this year. So and also they have to go to Florida State. So when you look at that in Louisville at home, like they have a tougher schedule. Louisville seems to have about this. Louisville probably has an easier schedule than Florida State, except the at Clemson part. But when you look at those three teams in particular, I think Florida State and Louisville have about the same schedule. I think Clemson has the hardest of the bunch, and then you look at Miami; they have to go to Louisville, and they have Florida State at home. Not that they get great crowds for any of those other home games, so that doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think Clemson, when you look at it on paper, NC State is the one team that Clemson plays that those other three teams don't play. And NC State's a bugaboo, man. They do well. They're a good program. They're a top 20, top 25-ish program that can certainly go into Death Valley and win. Nobody does that anymore, but they could maybe. And Louisville could too.
Again, here's what we know so far. Obviously, Florida State will start the 24 season off in Ireland Saturday, August 24th against Georgia Tech. They will then have a quasi bye week as they get ready for their home opener, ACC opener as well, against Boston College September 2nd. They've got Memphis September 14th. That Duke Friday night game, October 18th. And then you don't have to worry. I was kind of nervous about maybe they'd have to play at Notre Dame that following week, but they don't because that's the November 9th game. Then you've got your favorable FCS matchup the week before the Gators. So I know you guys did it on what? Do you guys do it on headlines as a breakout video or just about the chance they go 12-0 again?
Well, basically, none of us think that's even 50-50. I think I said 30% chance. They might have been a little bit higher than me. But yeah, I think when you look at this schedule, and we'll know it all on Wednesday, the two big question marks. Well, three, North Carolina's that's a good team, man. They're gonna have a decent offense. They always do. They're not gonna be a pushover. North Carolina's never a team you beat by 40. But you're gonna want to know where Clemson and Miami line up on the schedule. That's where you're gonna want to know. Is Miami gonna be a November game again? Is that gonna be in between Notre Dame and Charleston Southern? Are you gonna have to play at Notre Dame and at Miami back to back? I wouldn't. The ACC might have done that. You can't blame them. Will you play at Notre Dame and then Clemson at home? Like that's where I want to see is where Miami and Clemson fall on the schedule.
Yeah, because October's wide open other than that Duke game. So we'll see how it all pieces together. Again, that will be 5 o'clock on Wednesday, 5 to 7 o'clock. The ACC will reveal the schedule in its entirety, days, dates. So we'll have that as a live show most likely as well. Corey and I, again, that'll be part of the podcast for your Thursday. Not sure if we're going to do a mailbag this week. That'll put us at 3 shows. Crazy enough. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching the video. Stay connected to warchant.com. Plenty more reaction with all your Florida State brethren, everybody, over on the Tribal Council. Go check it out. Hit the thumbs up. And if you're listening to the podcast version, stick around. We'll be back with more. Thanks for watching.